What happens to a lot of Lyran starseeds is they'll incarnate on Earth, and they're pretty healthy. They got great genetics, actually. They get involved with sports, and they're doing quite well in their childhood, their teenage years, and their early adulthood. Then they hit the responsibilities of being an adult here on planet Earth, and they start dealing with stress and problems at work, or maybe they're having relationship problems, and maybe they're going through a divorce or they lose their job, and it starts activating those latent DNA markers, these trauma signatures that are in their DNA. And then they come down with fibromyalgia, or they come down with Lyme disease, or they come down with Hashimoto's thyroidosis. There's a number of different autoimmune conditions that they suffer from. And until they're able to do the shadow work around what actually happened in my Lyran life that I need to heal from, you can take supplements and adjust your diet and do physical things to support your health. But there's also a big emotional component to how do I resolve these ancient trauma signatures to where I can finally put it behind me and I don't have to keep suffering from these various illnesses.
Welcome, everyone, to Soul Communication. I am excited to continue talking about galactic history and how human consciousness has been evolving. Today is a very exciting episode to discuss how we arrived here on Earth, how as starseeds, we've collected a lot of information through space and time on Soul Communication. I have Debbie Solaris. She is ET contactee, interdimensional traveler, and galactic historian. She's been on many shows like Gaia TV, where I've seen Debbie many years ago. She has profound knowledge through Akashic readings and many expansive different perspectives. She offers classes on extraterrestrial life, galactic history, and ancient civilizations. As a certified Akashic Records reader, Debbie also teaches others how to open their Akashic records. Welcome, Debbie. I'm so excited to have you on. What an honor for me. You and I met on the Galactic Cruise
Yep.
back
Back in
December.
December. Yep.
Yes. And what a privilege. You actually were not able to read me on the ship, but we had our own session beginning of January. And I received so much because I have a lot of access to this information, but you have the grander perspective. So before we jump into all of that, I always like to ask the first question. You've been on this beautiful journey and on so many platforms talking about galactic history and our purpose here. What excites you today?
I'm excited that I feel pretty good today because I've been getting over a really bad cold and I don't take my health for granted. I don't like it when I don't feel good. And so I do everything I can to make sure that my health is important. So I'm just happy I feel good and I was able to join you today.
I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah.
Talking about health, I know one of the topics you cover is about health and qualities of different star seeds that I think is very unique. Some people don't really consider that if you're Arcturian, you might be processing foods differently than if you're a Lyran. Debbie, can you give us a summary of how these qualities correlated to these bodies?
Yeah, that's a great question. As a topic, I think have a lot of interest in because I went through my own health journey a few years ago. I was tapping into the Akashic Records to see what it is that's unique to my genetics, being an Arcturian starseed, that might be impacting my health here on Earth, and what can I do to reverse it? How can I optimize my health? It's the accumulation of years and years of doing Akashic readings for people of many different galactic lineages. So I was starting to see trends. I was starting to see, okay, people with Lyran background, they suffer from autoimmune conditions. Why is that? What's impacting that? Why particular to them? Or people that are Pleiadian genetics might have blood sugar issues. So maybe they're more prone to diabetes. Why is that? And what can they do as a Pleiadian starseed to optimize their health? So this is something that I've noticed for a while, and I put together a training on it. So if you go on the training page of my website, I think it's called Mastering Starseed Health. It's very inexpensive. Anybody can take it and watch the 2-hour video that we prepared. There were certain health conditions associated with certain star lineages because we're coming in here to Earth as starseeds, but our genetics are different. Maybe as an Arcturian starseed, I might not be prone to diabetes, but I could be prone to cancer. Or as an Orion starseed, maybe my health generally is pretty good unless I'm dealing with anger issues, and then I might have heart conditions. So there's things like that actually have to do with not only the genetics, but also it has to do also with what these people went through in their past lives and what they went through as far as their galactic history. So, what was the component of their galactic history that contributed to their health issues? For instance, just to give you an example of Lyrans, because you're a Lyran starseed, I know that. So I did your reading.
My
Because I
Lyran
did your
self is
reading.
right behind me.
There, yeah, we see that. We see your image right there.
Yeah.
So Lyrans, for instance, they went through a horrific war. They went through a lot of trauma. This trauma that's been embedded in their DNA. So what happens to a lot of Lyran starseeds is they'll incarnate on Earth and they're pretty healthy. They got great genetics, actually. So they're pretty healthy. They get involved with sports and they're doing quite well in their, I say, their childhood, their teenage years, and their early adulthood. But then they hit the responsibilities of being an adult here on planet Earth and they start dealing with stress and problems at work, or maybe they're having relationship problems and maybe they're going through a divorce or they lose their job, and it starts activating those latent DNA markers, these trauma signatures that are in their DNA. And then they come down with fibromyalgia, or they come down with Lyme disease, or they come down with Hashimoto's thyroidosis, or there's a number of different autoimmune conditions that they suffer from. And until they're able to, I think, do the shadow work around what actually happened in my Lyran life that I need to heal from, you can take supplements and adjust your diet and do physical things too to support your health. But a lot of it, there's also a big emotional component to how do I resolve these ancient trauma signatures to where I can finally put it behind me and I don't have to keep suffering from these various illnesses. Even though I'm not a Lyran starseed, I went through trauma in Lyra. And so for a number of years, I suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome. It was a thing. And until I was able to really grasp what happened to me in Lyra, I'm now at the point where I feel like I've totally eradicated it, but it took a number of years of really doing the inner work and also doing the supplementation and everything else that goes along with that. Certain supplements also that people can take that might be specific or would help their specific star lineage. So that's something that we talk about too in mastering starseed health.
Totally agree with you. Even what you mentioned about the Lyrans, what I've
Yeah.
been observing as well, because a lot of Lyrans come my way that attracted to that frequency.
Yeah,
And there's a
totally.
lot of
Yeah.
that abandonment, that sense of not having home and trauma of losing something and a
Losing
relationship.
something really beautiful and valuable. No, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I've mentioned this to you personally, and even when we were on the Lyran conference,
Yeah.
one of the most beautiful moments for me was to remember you from that lifetime as an ambassador, Arcturian ambassador that came into the Lyran system and was warning the Lyrans
And I was
about
trying to. I was trying to do my best. I
yeah,
was trying.
getting work. We were naive in some ways, maybe, about love and light. So it was hard for us to realize, or for the High Council to realize, that there could be someone who is not doing things in the greatest good. I think you were trying to warn about the Draco invasion, and I was supporting you because I was also seeing that as a
But nobody
possibility.
else was seeing it. That was the
Yeah.
problem. At least seeing
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And then I was
Yeah.
married into that alliance
Yeah.
and was taken to that Draco planet. And so when my light language opened up, it was the Lyran language and the Draco language at the same time. And it was interesting because they're so different. Lyran is so melodic and in the heart. and the Draco is very guttural.
Very guttural. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's
Yeah.
like Clean Youngs, if you
Yeah,
ever watch
totally.
Star Trek. I would say that's like the closest representation when I think of the Dracos. And it's interesting because I'm married to Draco. So we had to reconcile that.
He's a good Draco, though.
He's a good
So,
Draco. When we did the Akashic readings,
yeah.
you also mentioned that a lot of us on the human level, we have a lot of the Lyran DNA,
Mhm.
but my husband has issues with health as well as a Draco. And what
Totally.
was interesting when you mentioned that he might have issues being here because not as much DNA is of a Draco in his body too.
I would say it depends on a lot of things, but yeah, draconian genetics is not very common. I would say what's mostly common in Earth humans is Lyran and Sirian genetics. That's what I see the most.
Yeah.
Maybe some Pleiadian, depending on what part of Europe you come from or Eastern Europe. Yeah, I would say draconian DNA is not as common as people like to think. For somebody that is a true draconian starseed, it's very difficult for them physically to be in this form. I have done readings for a few people that are dragon or reptilian genetics, and they have a hard time. They feel like they have to hide who they are because they don't feel they're accepted. It's even more, I think, intense for them than it is for maybe even other starseeds that are maybe more accepted, such as Pleiadian starseeds or Arcturian, whatever. They have a hard time and they feel like sometimes they have to hide who they are and kind of work behind the scenes a lot.
And I feel the ones that actually incarnated here on Earth are rogue Dracos, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. These are, like you said, the good ones, the
Yeah, they're
ones
the
that
ones that
actually
are
separated from the Empire and didn't want to support
the
that
light,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've been fortunate as far as doing my Akashic reading practice that I've seen enough good ones to know that, yeah, they're not all bad. I think there's this misconception or there's this human quality or tendency to wanna group everybody as evil or group everybody as good. So if you're reptilian, you must be bad because you're reptilian. And it's just like anything else. There's reptilians that are aligned with the light, and there's quite a few that are aligned with the dark. So you always want to use discernment whenever you're running across any being, even a Pleiadian, because not all Pleiadians are of the light. And I think people have a hard time accepting that. But there's some rogue Pleiadians out there.
I had experience with your Pleiadians,
Yeah,
so
no,
I
they're
know
not all
exactly. I'm
good.
not gonna go into the details of it, but we were
Yeah.
surprised, and absolutely, there are factions on either side. And that brings me to our conversation about my Akashic Records, and we went further out, and I was like, "Debbie, I wanna go beyond the Milky Way, beyond the Andromeda Galaxy. Let's go back to the source and where we came from." And
Mhm.
so you opened up this beautiful perspective for me that after we split from the source, we were actually in a different universe. I don't know if it's a mirror universe, but it's a different universe where there were avian beings and the Draco beings. That's where
Mhm.
really they came from. Can you tell us a little more about that universe?
Yeah, I saw this a while ago because I was doing readings for certain people that I kept getting the impression that you're not even from this universe, you're from somewhere else. And so I kept going back and back in the records, and then I saw, oh my gosh, there was this all other universe, and there was the two major races was the Avians and the Draconians, and they were in constant war with each other. And I wouldn't even say this was a counterpart universe; it was just another universe. But I kept seeing this ongoing war, and I think the Avians just got really tired. They just got tired of being in constant war, so they developed some sort of technology where they were able to dispose of the Draconians. They pulled them out of their star system in that other universe and deposited them in this universe, which is amazing. Who knew? Maybe it was through a portal or something. I don't know how exactly they did this. So that's how we inherited the Draconians because they too originally didn't come from this universe. I would say the supreme rulers of this other universe, and they got disposed of. And they were pissed when they got here. They were just like, we had these beautiful planets and now we're in Draco and the planets are barren and we don't have any resources. We have to conquer as much as we can, gain resources and power. So our story actually started even from another universe. So it wasn't like the Draconians came here and were just for the heck of it, wanted to conquer Lyra. There was a reason behind it. They were kicked out of their home also, and they were angry, and they saw the Lyrans with all their abundant planets and thought, we need to take over their planets because they got a lot of resources and we don't have anything here. So they got a raw deal too, in a way. Not that I'm giving them a whole lot of sympathy, but I think they created their own karma from whatever happened in that alternate universe. I do get some clients who maybe were avians from that prior universe. They're
Yeah, and I
missing.
think you read my record saying that I was the
You are one
avian.
of those avians.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the followed and came here first to Andromeda Galaxy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell us more because you said that I basically followed here. It had to do with my twin flame, my husband. That's why I
Mhm.
decided to come here. What was interesting for me, you were mentioning how in Andromeda Galaxy, we first tried to create planets and all of that, but we couldn't fully have humanoid life. So that's why Milky Way was created. Could it be a mirror of Andromeda?
Yeah, that's a great segue into that. Obviously, each universe goes through its separation from source. This is like a template that keeps repeating itself through multiple universes. So it became this universe's turn to have that experience. And initially, this was supposed to happen in Andromeda Galaxy. So Andromeda Galaxy is a beautiful galaxy. It's got beautiful star systems. So the Andromeda Galaxy Soul Group were co-creators. So they were creators of stars and nebulas and planets. But what they were finding was that they couldn't sustain physical life. So they could sustain the planets, but they couldn't sustain physicality that was needed to have physical beings on these planets. So they decided, and these were brilliant beings. They were like light angels. They were massive beings.
Angels that we perceive as angels, but they could be Andromedan, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Angels, Elohim, co creators, that's all kind of interchangeable. They're all the same beings. We just call them different things because maybe in the Bible they called them Elohim. Maybe we've been calling them angels because that's our Christian heritage here in planet Earth. Other beings call them co creators or the watchers or whatever you want to call them, but they're the same beings. So when I
Including
see them,
archangels as well.
yeah, totally. Or seraphim or cherubim, whatever. So these beings decided we can't sustain, we're too high vibrational here in Andromeda Galaxy. Let's create a duplicate galaxy that's similar to Andromeda Galaxy, but it has lower dimensions. So we can sustain physicality in this new galaxy. So they created the Milky Way, and the Milky Way actually separated from the Andromeda Galaxy. This was all part of this creation process. And then the Andromeda Galaxy group was so devoted to this creation that they left Andromeda Galaxy behind to support this new separation from source. And to me, that takes a lot of devotion to leave your home and to go in this other galaxy, that knowing that you're not going to be able to go back home for millennia. And so these beings, so in a way, I think because you were one of the original avians that left that alternate universe, this was your way of making reparations. It was your way of fixing a problem that was created by these frustrated avians that decided, we're just going to depose of these our enemies and get rid of them. But then they created a problem for another universe. A lot of these beings came here making reparations. So they're adding their beautiful light and their beautiful gifts to help balance out the playing field, so to speak. So then, of course, you ended up incarnating in Lyra because that's where everything started in our galaxy. So it was where
Yeah.
began.
So
Yeah.
my understanding is the Andromedans or these angelic beings, right? They were really good in being ethereal. They didn't
Mhm.
really know how to be like specifically in physicality. And that's why they invited the Felines from a different universe. I received the same through quantum healing hypnosis I've done for someone, she basically was telling the whole story from their perspective of being one of these
Interesting.
Felines.
Yeah.
And then how they came here on the ships, how they started the DNA manipulation and Lyra system. And then when they felt they were completed with the first children, so to speak, they
Mhm.
went back to the universe. It was fascinating. I was able to follow her. And when we arrived to the universe they came from, it was very different vibrationally. There was no
Mhm.
really polarity there. And they basically co-create us as well. That's what they do. They co-create with other beings because they know how to work the genetics.
So the felines, a lot of people associate these felines with Lyra, but they didn't originate from Lyra. There was like 45 of them that came from alternate universe, and they were brought in by the Andromeda galaxy group to create physical life. So these were beings that were master geneticists. They knew how to manipulate physical genetics. So I always say that, and I know a lot of people think I'm freaking crazy for saying this, but I do stand by it, that the human race, humanoids, this is a template that's been used over and over again throughout multiple universes. We're a composite of feline, simian, and also avian genetics. That's why I think a lot of humans feel this kinship with cats and with dogs and with birds because we carry some of their DNA. It was manipulated through thousands of millions of years. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, let's put a bunch of genetics together and we're going to make a human. It was like they started off hybridizing themselves. So they initially had maybe more humanoid bodies, but cat heads or bird heads. And there was some humanoid kind of hybrid versions of themselves. And then it started becoming more and more human looking. So as time went on, they started perfecting this manipulation. And I think the reason why they were doing this was because when they were creating themselves as felines, they were ascending too quickly. They couldn't stay in physical form. They were physical form, then they would ascend. And then it would be like, what's the point? So they had to keep downgrading the DNA a little bit with maybe more and more simian genetics. I don't know. So they eventually created the human form, which is what we now know as humanoid beings, which then, after the Lyran Wars, got spread out all throughout the galaxy. So I would say the vast majority of humanoids are in some ways, I would say, directly descendants of Lyrans and Vegan beings. So these are beings that came from the Lyra system.
What's the difference between the Lyrans and the Vegans?
So there's a template that it's a basic template of Source. When Source first split off, Source initially split off into Mother Goddess consciousness and Father God consciousness. So this is a template that keeps repeating itself throughout creation.
I've been
When
told that I'm coming from the mother
the Mother Goddess
source.
conscious. Yeah.
I feel this divine mother presence. Like when I channel these
Yeah.
tones that come through, I feel this energy. It's hard to put in words. If you were to put it in words, how would you explain it?
So I think when these felines and these avian beings were mucking around with the genetics, and when they finally perfected the human form, the first human form they created was a representation of the Mother Goddess consciousness. So these beings had blue skin. This is where all of the darker skin genetics on planet Earth come from originally. So initially in the higher dimensional realms, the brown skin actually was blue. These beings had blue skin, and they were more divine feminine, meaning that they were more focused on spirituality and healing. So these were beings that were more inwardly focused. So they were more yin focused personality rather than yang
These are like the
focused.
Hindu gods.
Yeah, the Hindu gods. So I really believe that the Hindu gods were just Vegan beings that were visiting Earth way back. So they have an appearance like Hindu gods, or sometimes I even say that, if you want to really use Hollywood, I would say maybe the Avatar movies, that's a good representation of what they probably looked like. They were tall, blue skinned beings. They were amazing. They had gifts beyond what we can even imagine here on planet Earth, but they were more the representation of the divine feminine energies. So they were very focused on spirituality, and they were the first beings that came up with all these healing modalities that we currently use today.
Frequency type of healing, like you would say,
Yeah.
like Reiki and energy, and what people know as sound
Now it's
healing.
sound healing, yeah, all of it. Yeah. So they were the ones that came up with that. Then because there always has to be this duality, I think, in our universe, the co-creators also created the Father God consciousness beings. So these were the white Lyrans. So these were the representation. These were the Lyrans that looked like, I don't know, like Greek gods, or they had beautiful features and form, and they were more physical beings. So they were a little bit more athletic, more outwardly focused, more interested in organizations and systems. And these beings were very agricultural. They were more focused on plant medicine. They also had their specialties. A lot of souls might identify with one or the other. So they might say, yeah, I feel like I'm more of a vegan, I'm more that mother goddess consciousness being, or they might feel more aligned with the father god consciousness.
Would it be like a mix? And maybe not necessarily from the Lyrian, maybe it's later from other lifetimes. The feminine and the masculine within us, right?
Oh,
We could have
totally.
had
Yeah.
different incarnations, having different consciousnesses.
So, an example of a very mixed race of beings was the Sirians. So, after the Lyran Wars were over, there was refugees from Vega and Lyra that were inhabiting Sirius. And at this point, they were in one planet together. They were going to intermarry and intermix, and they became the Sirian race. And so the Sirians are an excellent example of a race that is actually a mix of the two Lyran races. And so they were very technical. Like Sirians, Sirius A people are super technical. Okay. Same
The
time, they were
pyramids,
high.
I feel all by
Yes.
them,
Yeah.
by the whole Egyptian
They were,
pantheon is pretty
yeah, they
much
were, yeah,
Lyrian.
they were all Syrians. And
Yeah.
yeah, Isis was a Syrian being. Okay. And so was Osiris.
And
Probably,
Safmet, which I channel quite a lot. The other day, I had a conversation with her, and she told me she was Syrian too, but originally her ancestors were Lyran. So that
yeah.
was really interesting.
They were called the Royal House of Sirius. They said there was these beautiful cat beings that were descendants of Lyran cat beings, but they were part of Sirius. So Sirius had a lot of diversity. So they were an excellent mix because they had the spirituality component, but they were also interested in technology. A lot of our ways of doing things here on planet Earth came from Sirius. So a lot of our concept of civilization and government and construction, just building systems, came from the Sirius systems. So we saw this intermixing quite a lot. The Pleiades was more the white Lyran, so they were more the kind of the maybe with some exceptions, but I would say the Pleiadians were more descendants of the white Lyrans, so their focus was a little different. But they too also were descending from these beings. The only ones that weren't really descendants of Lyrans were the Arcturians.
I was about to
Arcturians,
ask you because I feel like Turians and Antarians, they have very different frequency.
the Arcturian beings had their own consciousness, so they were always set aside to be the guardians or the overseers of the whole galactic experiment that we've been a part of.
Were they also invited by the Andromedans to be the overseers? How did they end up here?
That's a good
Arcturians.
question. I think probably at some point they were an offshoot of the Andromeda galaxy group, but because I do believe pretty much everything was funneled here through Andromeda galaxy, but they too had to create this new identity because they were in this other universe, in this other galaxy. They were associated with the Bodas constellation and with Arcturus, they became Arcturians. They too have a rich history that transcends this universe. They've probably been the overseers for multiple universes for millennia. So these are beings that were highly advanced for millions of, if not billions of years, but their purpose was a little different. So it wasn't like they were going to be a part of this whole duality between light and dark because they were just more the referees. So they were just overseeing everything.
The diplomats, I see them, like, always
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
ships being diplomats. Done a bunch of regressions with Arcturians, and it's been so beautiful to hear how they live on ships and how they travel to these different civilizations, and they always diplomats bring gatherings together and ensuring this kind of collaboration in the galaxy.
Yeah, totally. As a soul, I feel very honored to be part of that group. That if I had the type of experiences I've had, even though some of my incarnations were not always positive or there was trauma involved, but I think that's true of a lot of us. We choose to have certain experiences and we choose them in order to transcend them at some point. I just feel very honored to be here on Earth right now, to helping with the ascension process here. And like the rest of us, I think all of us are more or less here for the same reason. But yeah, the Arcturians had their own unique history, and they too were attacked by the Draconians. But unlike the Lyrans, they took it seriously, and they were just like they were more prepared, I
More
think.
prepared,
Yeah,
yeah.
more prepared. Yeah, they
And
were
I think they
able.
had even better technology than
Oh, they
the
had way better technology. Yeah, I would say that was the downfall of the Lyrans is they were not. I think because they lived in these paradise planets, they just didn't feel like, okay, we need to have weapons or we need to have, because everything was just manifested. They didn't feel like the need to have technology yet. Or they did have technology, but not to the level where they could protect themselves. But it was a hard lesson for them. But I would say the Lyrans today, I think, have integrated these lessons that a lot of them I think are very interested in technology and also very interested in their physical health and maintaining a certain level of fitness. I see a lot of Lyran starseeds that love sports. My husband's one of them. He's an athlete and he loves to play baseball and golf and all the sports. They love sports because that's their expression of their masculine energy. And a lot of them get into also martial arts and being able to protect themselves. So I see that quite a bit also. Some of them might even join the military for a while because they're trying to transcend that feeling of helplessness that they went through in Lyra, where they were in this horrific war and they couldn't do anything about it. I see a lot of them that become really badass in this life. They're just like, they're becoming these spiritual warriors. They are really badass. So this has given us an opportunity to rewrite history.
So, from what my perception, there'll be some of us who've been since the time of Lemurian Atlantis.
Yeah.
We're like the OGs.
Yeah.
We've been around the block. We've signed up to this experiment. They've been holding the grid, right, and reworking the grid. And then there's all these new children, including my child.
Yeah.
And you and I, before the podcast, were talking about more children coming who are signing up only now to come in. So, wanted to hear your perspective on these new children and where do you think we heading forward in terms of the frequency of the earth and why these children are coming in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the kids that are coming in now, they're coming in at a higher frequency. A lot of them, what I've noticed, they've had a lot of incarnations off planet, but not so much on planet. So a lot of them, this is like their first time on Earth. So the reason why they're able to come in now is because the frequency on planet Earth is shifting and changing. Before, they couldn't even think about incarnating here because it was not conducive to their frequency. But because things are shifting and changing, they're now able to incarnate in. And a lot of these kids actually even remember that they're coming in with all their memories intact. So you get these little kids that say, "Oh yeah, I was this and this, and I was on this planet in a previous life, and this is what I did, and this is why I'm here." It was are you 5 years old or are you 35 years old or 55? I'm like, what the heck is this kid talking about? But they're coming in and they know they're not from here. They know why they're here. They know they're not from here. And they know who they are. So if you want to call them Gen Alphas or I don't know, I don't buy into some of these terminologies as far as generations, but these are what I call the rainbow children.
Yeah, I like the term rainbow children. I've been using that more. It feels more in resonance.
So all their chakras open.
All
It's
the
like they're
chakras, exactly. All
yeah,
the frequency. Yeah.
yeah,
At
they're
the same
coming.
time, it's hard for them here.
Oh, it
It's
is. Yeah. I mean,
very compressed. That's the word, yeah.
Yeah, and they're kinda like deer in the headlights sometimes. Wow, I didn't realize this was so primitive here. It's like, it's not at all what I'm used to from where I came from. A lot of them, I think, might struggle in school. I feel like education has to change to accommodate new kids in the way they learn, because the way they learn isn't the way we used to learn, where it was mostly rote memorization. It was just knowing just enough to be able to follow orders. It's like how we were taught in school. But these are kids that are critical thinkers, and they're not going to accept that. They're just not. So they're coming in with much higher frequencies, much more in tune with their skill sets and their gifts. These are the kids that are going to be the system builders. So they're the ones that are going to be building New Earth. So a lot of them are coming in with very advanced technical knowledge and advanced knowledge and healing modalities and how to manipulate energy. We're seeing a change. Even you and I think you're second wave, I'm first wave. We're going to be going by the wayside at some point. Our time here will be complete, and our contract here on planet Earth will end, and we'll probably return home or wherever home may be for us. But these kids, they're going to be here a while, and they're going to be helping Earth to meet its destiny of becoming a true galactic citizen, that Earth is no longer going to be isolated and separated from all the other star races. It's going to become like what we've been seeing for years on Star Trek, where it's going to become part of the greater galactic family.
When you're speaking about this reality that we
Yeah.
join in the Galactic Federation, when do you think that will happen? How many years will it take us based on where we are in our consciousness?
Yeah. I got a weird kind of light thing going on
I
here,
saw
but
that. I was like
yeah, it's
almost
kind
like
of,
angels coming
yeah,
in.
yeah. Angels are coming in. Yeah.
We talked about the children.
The children, yeah, they're coming in as we speak. So I think we're right around the corner, honestly. I think we're going to have contact with extraterrestrial beings where everybody knows, no hiding from the government, where everybody knows that we're having contact. I would say as early as 2028. Maybe not until, I would say, between 2028 and 2032. And I don't know if it's going to be Pleiadians and Sirians. It might be more like Venusians or Alpha Centaurians, because they're the closest star system outside of our solar system.
Do they look more like humans?
They look like us. Yeah. Venusians look like more beautiful versions, maybe, of humans, but I mean, they're pretty good-looking people. And Alpha Centauri, I would say they look like us. There might be some slight differences, but if you were to run it across an Alpha Centaurian down the street, you probably would not even think they were alien. You would probably think, yo, they look human.
And the
Yeah, I would
height
say
is
they're high. Yeah, I would say
same.
maybe a slightly taller, not outside the realm of tallness. If you run across a Pleiadian, they're very tall. They're not from Earth. They're tall. The same with Lyrans. Lyrans are very tall.
My recollection of myself and that body is 9 foot or so.
Yeah, they're tall. And I think there were some vegan beings that were 12 feet tall. They were very tall.
I know the Dracos were about that and more.
Yeah.
It's when I
Yes.
see myself with the Dracos, I'm very short and they're like massive compared
They're
to me.
massive, yeah. So an Alpha Centaurian, they're the closest. They might be more advanced and they might be higher vibrational, but they're the closest to Earth humans. So for us to meet them, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. Same with Venusians. Venusians have been visiting Earth. They've visited Earth back in the 1950s. But like with Valthor and, that whole group.
Debbie, to actually be here vibrationally, it's still much lower than on those planets. Can they be here for a long time? I'm assuming not.
No, they have a hard time.
Yeah.
They
Only a couple of
it's
hours,
very
probably.
yeah, they're very limited. They're just, "Oh, we can only handle this for." And the same probably for the Alpha Centaurians. They probably will have a hard time even. So can you imagine a Pleiadian? They're really not gonna be able to hang here,
What about the
so,
hybrid children? Because
uh
I've been connecting to the children on the Bashar ship, and they were very excited about coming down and being part of the society. And they were showing me that it's very possible. I was wondering if you saw any of that.
Well, they have more integrated Earth genetics. Them, it would be easier than some being that has never been to Earth and hasn't been really acclimated to Earth densities probably have an easier time, even though they do carry quite a bit of alien genetics as well. But because they're partially human, Earth human, like the Essassani, for instance, they're going to be able to integrate quite easily with, they're going to look different. Don't get me wrong. They look different. If you see a Yael, they're not.
I've met them on the ships, and
Yeah.
I've seen the difference between Yael and Asasani, and it's a
Essassani,
big difference.
There's a big difference between just those two, let alone difference between them and Earth people. It's going to become very normalized. We're going to have extraterrestrial contact. Once that happens, we can't help but ascend. When you're interacting with extraterrestrials, there's going to be a whole world of information that's going to be available and new technologies that are going to be available. It's not going to be hidden anymore. So I think this is just around the corner. And like I said, the timelines might change. It depends on a lot of different things. But so I don't like to get too stuck on timelines because
they ever shift in, and just in my own perceptual reality, I used to be able to see timelines, and now it's just jumped so much. It's hard.
It's just hard. So I don't like making predictions on things per se, but that's the timeline I keep seeing in the Akashic Records. And I hope it is that, because that means that Ascension is just around the corner and we're going to see a lot of really positive changes, like free energy devices and med beds and technologies that have been hidden from us for decades, if not hundreds of years, that are going to become very common and very accessible for a lot of humans. The thing that's going to change too is the monetary system. That's going to change. I think it's already changing.
Our current president declared us being crypto capital of the world. So that alone is very interesting. I loved your readings, by the way, of the current new government. The recent one I listened to, besides the fact the president and RFK, they're all from the Orion system, and they've done this before.
No, they've been preparing for this for a
long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like with this presidency, it's been like chop, chop.
Chop, chop. Yeah, we're not.
So Debbie puts out on YouTube these amazing readings on celebrities, but also people in the government. I loved the one on the Elon Musk. That was a surprise to me, because I remember you did the reading before and you were saying they were all part of this Orion resistance. But then you looked at him deeper and you saw that he was Andromedan, bringing all this frequency technology, all this technology, and obviously wanted to bring us back to the stars. His whole mission to Mars, that was fascinating for me. That resonated a lot. The Andromedan Council doesn't get as involved as some other councils, but that was really interesting how Elon is doing so much right now. It's incredible.
I mean, and that man has endless energy. I don't know where he gets. He must.
I don't either. I'm like, when does he sleep?
Oh my gosh! Just creating the amount of kids he creates is, oh my god! It's like, how did he's like a prolific everything. But yeah, he's pretty amazing. And I know a lot of people hate him and they don't like what he's doing. I think it's because they don't understand the bigger picture of it. They think it's just all just money based, and it's not. I think he's really trying to bring us to the galactic age, and that's been his whole purpose. And it's not just about the money. He's got more money than Midas, or I don't know, he's got more money than God probably, but it's more about the overall mission. And I love Robert Kennedy Jr. He's trying to overhaul the health system, and it's just this big overhaul that I think was desperately needed. We cannot sustain the old ways of doing things anymore. We're going to run ourselves into annihilation if things would have continued the way they have. And that was the whole purpose, was to this big eugenics program of, let's try to reduce the human population from 8 billion to 500 million, and then the 500 million are just going to be slaves to the elites, and we just can't sustain that in the long run. So I definitely am happy to see a lot of these changes occurring.
It's interesting to see it from your perspective, from the Akashic Records, and the fact that they have these past lives possibly together, and they might not remember this, obviously.
No.
But somewhere in the background, the purpose is shared of this other world that I think we align to. I don't vote myself. I'm very in a unified field, and I've been getting the message to stay out of politics. But
Politics, yeah.
when this presidency came in, there was this like excitement about the timelines, that this is shifting us into the timeline where the future that you talked about is more possible now.
I believe that, and because I did see an alternate timeline where we go into World War III, and
I saw that too.
yeah, and,
And it
there
was
was
not a
this,
pretty one.
no, it was not good. No, we totally avoided that whole timeline. The human race has spoken, and they're wanting change, and I think it's about damn time. It was like, we need massive change, and I do see that. It's a dismantling of the old system, and it's hard on people. I think a lot of people are having a rough time of it. Not obviously not those of us that have been awakened to it. We see the bigger picture of things, but a lot of folks are not adjusting that well to it, and is what it is. I think ultimately it's going to lead us to a much better timeline. And I'm with you. I'm not one side over the other. I'm actually a registered independent. I don't really align myself with either party. That's not the purpose of this. It's the bigger picture of it.
The
That
bigger picture for
picture,
sure.
yeah.
And I think those of us who been on this journey for a long time, when we have the perspective, people are
Yeah.
just starting to wake up during the pandemic. But it's interesting to observe and how this is all playing out. Also, I'm noticing a lot of souls are exiting out right now. So
Mhm.
there is interest
I
in
predicted that 10 years ago. I predicted that there was going to be a mass exodus of souls that are going to get attritioned out because they're not aligning with the ascension, or they chose not to be a part of it. And that's their choice. In the long run, there's nobody that's going to be left behind. So souls always get the opportunity over and over again to align with higher timelines. But I think that's the reason why we're seeing so many, particularly with the celebrity set. There's a lot of celebrities that are passing away, and a lot of people that are from, I would say, the 3D realm, even probably within our own inner circles and our own families, where, some of them are not choosing to be a part of this ascension process. And eventually, what we're going to see is more of a separation between those of us that are ascending and we're moving into the fourth dimension and into the fifth, and those that are choosing to stay behind in the third. And eventually, the third dimension is no longer going to exist here on Earth. So, what's going to happen with those souls is they're going to get attritioned out, and they're going to incarnate in other third dimensional realities. But Earth, as we know it, is going to become realigned with the fifth dimension, which is what it was always meant to be. So it was always meant to be a fifth dimensional planet. So it's returning to its original intention. At that point, we're going to see a lot of changes, even in our physicality, where Earth humans we're going to be moving from a carbon based physical form to more of a crystalline physical form. And as somebody that has a background in science, I'm not sure exactly how this is supposed to occur, but what I do know, as a lot of us, we keep getting upgraded, like energetically. And some people call that ascension symptoms, or they might call it a lot of different things, but we're constantly getting upgraded. And I see this a lot particularly with how people are aging. I think people are aging a lot slower nowadays. Maybe it's because we have better access to better food, or I don't know. There's a lot of GMOs in food. They're all constantly trying to poison us. Okay. There's that as well. But I do believe that because we're constantly being energetically upgraded, we are aging differently than our parents did, or and definitely, certainly our grandparents. I'm seeing a
perhaps
lot of,
some DNA codes are being activated through
they
this
did.
process as well. And
Yeah.
everyone talks about the 12-stranded DNA. So that's our original maybe
That's what we're
template
returning to. Yeah.
that
We're
we're
returning
returning
to
to as
that.
well in the process. And those of us who in this journey, we I definitely feel that. I'm turning 45 and I don't feel maybe some deviation from my 30s, but not a huge one. And I look at you also, Debbie, and over the years
I'm
I saw you
62.
And I saw
Yes.
your episodes on Gaia way back on Beyond Belief with George Norris, and I'm looking at you now. You look younger than you were back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah,
which is
no, I do.
incredible.
Yeah, I reversed aged totally. Yeah, because
And you're definitely taking care more of yourself and
yeah,
you're
no, I
eating
think a lot
healthier,
of
but
it is physical too. I definitely transformed my health. Yeah, starseeds, we're the new prototypes. So we're the prototype of the new humans. I do believe we're going to be living much longer lives. So I would say humans nowadays living until 120 is not out of the realm of possibilities. I think there's humans on this planet right now that are that old. And I think it's going to be accessible to a lot of us. And we're going to see getting the lifespans getting longer and longer as we move into these higher dimensions.
so give us a timeline, let's say, of a Lyran and a Pleiadian. What is their average lifespan?
Oh, for Lyrans and Pleiadians, it was like between 500 to 700 years. For Andromedans, it was like 2000. Andromedans lived a long time. I mean, they were,
Arcturians too, from what I
yeah,
understand, they transfer the consciousness to this other body they create.
yeah,
So there's
totally.
rejuvenation. They really focus on, at least Andromedans, from my experience with them and my future self. They go into these pods for a period of time to completely rejuvenate on the cellular level.
And the
And
Arcturians do the same thing. So they use a lot of pod energy. As a matter of fact, my dear friend Arcturus Ra is creating a he's already created it, but he's creating a med bed and trying to bring he's trying to bring the Arcturian technology to Earth. And I can't wait to see what he's able to create with these med beds. But he's one of the few that I know that actually has already created this technology. He's perfecting it, but yeah, he's definitely a part of it.
And we're playing with a lot of Andromedan, I would say, technology as
Yeah.
well, quantum technology,
Yeah.
similar, like
Oh,
medbed
totally.
technology and other things you can wear that will be in your biofield that would also support your frequency. I think quantum technology is the way of the future health-wise.
No,
And it
totally.
feels like from what I saw in these future cities, at least in Andromeda biospheres where the environment was so harmonized that it was supporting the body. And so these future cities of Earth, I feel gonna be that way too.
It's gonna be the same way, yeah. I saw that as well, and I'm excited to see what's possible for us, and the thing I keep looking forward to is teleportation personally, because
I'm with you. I'm past jumping on a plane and going through
I
security
know, I'm
checks.
just like, "You know what? I just can't hang with the long airplane rides." I can't believe it takes 4 hours to go from Denver to the East Coast or Florida, for instance. I feel like we should be at the point right now where we can just teleport ourselves wherever we wanna go, and it just happens. It's not like an arduous thing. It's not, "Oh my god, I have to go through jet lag and go hang out at the airport with a bunch of strangers," and I do think that's gonna become a reality for us
I
as,
think it's gonna be like Star Trek technology.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's totally gonna be I think they're gonna have to use, I would say, physical machines at first to create this technology, but then after a while, we're gonna just be able to do it at will. We're just gonna be able to manifest it without having to use any external machines or technology. So, yeah, I do see that happening, and so a lot of the things that were showcased in Star Wars and Star Trek were actually scientific fact. It wasn't scientific fiction.
It
I
was
mean,
all pulled from Neosphere, from the
yeah,
Akashic Records, and
yeah,
didn't come out of nowhere. Even Avatar, I am 100% sure James Cameron pulled it from his Dreamtime or Ceremony, whatever he did to
yeah.
portray so closely and
He
realistically.
must have been a Vega starseed, or I
That
don't know.
too.
I think he was having some past life memories or
You
something
should
of
do
that.
a reading of James Cameron. That might be
I
very
should, yeah,
interesting
I
one.
should, yeah. He's kind of an interesting character. Him
He
and George
is, and all his
Lucas.
movies always using very advanced technology for movie making. Like he's always pushing the envelope also in technology. So I'm curious what that is coming from for him to
Yeah.
really want it to portray it that way.
Yeah, in some ways, I think Hollywood has become like soft disclosure, even though they couch it as, oh, this is just made up make believe and it's fiction. It really isn't fiction. For instance, the Matrix movies were, I feel like, a documentary. I don't even think they were fiction at all. I think a lot of us became awakened after we watched the Matrix series with that adorable actor, Keanu
Keanu
Reeves.
Reeves. You did a reading on him too. I
I
love that
did. Yeah, I
reading.
did.
That
Yeah,
was perfect role for him, I
yeah,
think.
no, he's definitely Lyran Andromedan. I just get that very Andromedan vibe with him. Very advanced, I think, but he's also very humble. He doesn't want to be part of that whole Hollywood glitz and
Yeah.
glamour scene. That's not his thing. He doesn't care about that. He wants to be of service and help people. That's very unusual for somebody of his fame to take on something like that. He was one of the ones I really enjoyed connecting with because I just really like his energy. And RFK Jr. too, he was a delight to do a reading for.
I love that because
Yeah.
he's actually close friends with Aubrey Marcus, who I've met. And I know he has done a lot of work with them, like ceremonial work, things usually politicians don't do, and very humble.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
just a regular guy, but he wants to help people. He's bringing to light like all these glaring atrocities in our healthcare. It should have been resolved long, long time ago. Just this dependence on big pharma and all these really horrible drugs that are really designed to keep humans sick, not to help them get better. And he's really paying attention to, I think, a lot of aspects of health that I think was much needed.
He comes also from the family of the Kennedys, of course, that have, I feel, in some ways been involved in the disclosure and been suppressed. That's really what
Yeah,
happened.
they've been extremely suppressed. Yeah, I saw the whole Kennedy lineage came from Orion. They were part of the Black League resistance fighters. So they were trying, even JFK was trying really hard to, and even JFK Jr., which was trying hard to disclose like a lot of what was going on, and they were suppressed. They got either taken out, or there's some people like my husband who believe that JFK Jr. is still alive. I don't know about that, but he might be. I don't know. There's a lot of layers, hidden information on this planet that I think we all need to work through.
Do you also connect to the inner earth beings, like the beings like Mount Shasta, the part of the Agartha network? There's a lot of still Lemurian beings that kind of present here.
Yeah, I did a lot of work on my presentation for this Hawaii retreat I was recently on. And through the work I was doing as far as creating a presentation, I saw that a lot of the Lemurian survivors are now part of these inner earth beings. So the inner earth beings, I think some of them are Lyran survivors from past wars. And some of them, a lot of them are Lemurian. So there is this Lemurian presence in inner Earth. So what happened with Lemuria was that they got into this war with Atlantis, or Atlantis, I think, instigated this war.
Mhm.
They got destroyed because they didn't have the technology that Atlantis had.
And
But there was
Atlantis was an Orion outpost, right?
Yeah, they didn't start off like that. I think initially they were this beautiful civilization. They were founded by Lyrans and Pleiadians. It was a beautiful civilization, but they got infiltrated by the negative Orion factions. So they became more and more corrupt, what we see in our governments today. They went to war with Lemuria, and Lemuria got destroyed, but a lot of the Lemurian beings, they either went into inner Earth or they traveled to other parts of the planet, particularly Southeast Asia and even Egypt to a certain extent. And the rest of them transformed themselves into aquatic beings. So some of the dolphins and whales that we see in the Pacific Rim might be Lemurian beings that chose to stay in that form because they were shapeshifters. So these beings were able to shapeshift into birds and fish, chose paths to, I guess, to save themselves, but also to preserve the knowledge. So they were trying to safeguard the ancient Lemurian knowledge. And so I think what's going to happen with the inner earth beings is eventually we're going to become very aware of them. And I don't think they're going to remain underground. I think at some point they're going to come back up and bring back new Lemuria. I think they're waiting until we get to a certain consciousness level before that happens. So I see the extraterrestrial contact first, then the reintegration of the inner Earth beings. And that includes also like the Sasquatch and the Yetis and the cryptids that people are always fascinated with. These beings were also originally from Lyra. So a lot of people don't know that, but they were descendant of Lyran beings that came to Earth a very long time ago. They actually have 12-strand DNA. So in a lot of ways, they have multidimensional traveling aspects that Earth humans don't have, but they've been able to maintain that. So they shift between dimensions quite a bit. So these beings, they're a lot more advanced than I think Earth humans give them credit for. They have their own culture, civilization, they do their thing. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of reintegration. We're going to go back to the way Earth was supposed to be back in before the fall of Lemur. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be, as my husband calls it, heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth is what we signed up for. And so
Yeah, it totally. Yeah.
we're here to bring it back. Thank you so much. What you were just talking about Lemurian beings, I had my own experience in Mount Shasta, and that's exactly what they said, that
Yeah.
they will come up when we're ready for them on a frequency that can match them. And it might happen sooner than we think.
I think it's just around the corner too.
Yeah.
I think Earth people, if they're not awakened by now, they're going to be in for a big surprise. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming to the surface, literally and figuratively speaking, that is going to be different, going to be beautiful, but it's going to be really different for a lot of people. But it's going to be beautiful in a lot of ways where it's going to be like the way it was, in a way it was always meant to be. Can't wait to see that happen.
Yeah. Some people saying this has never been done before. I don't know, I keep on hearing this Earth experiment where the planet is shifting together with the people. Is that quite true? That in the galaxy, when the ascension hasn't usually happened together with the beings on it?
Yeah, I would say it's been different here than other systems. Other systems that took much longer, like Orion, for instance, took millions of years for Orion to shift to the light. I think here on Earth, everything's condensed and it's condensed to the point where everything happens a lot faster here. I think a lot of that has to do with all this massive integration of DNA from many different systems as it's happened through millennia. So the ascension here is happening a lot differently than it's happened ever in any other star system. So that's part of why a lot of extraterrestrials councils are really paying attention to Earth. They're seeing what's possible. And I have to say, in the grand scheme of things, when you think about technology, for instance, we've evolved light years in just a matter of 100 years with technology. Now we're looking at the integration of AI, and where is that going to take us?
And it's happening so quick now.
I know.
And then Elon wants to get to the Mars.
He's trying to get us to Mars, and who knows what's going to happen after that. But
I wonder if it has to do with his past life on Mars and Maldek. I feel like he does.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the fascination probably, but
Yeah, I had someone share his past life on Mars. It was a beautiful planet with these beautiful, like, blue pools everywhere, and the beings. When he was describing them, I could remote view and gleam them, and they were just really gorgeous. And so it is possible he just trying to get us home to his home as he remembers it.
at least his home here. I think ultimately his home is Andromeda Galaxy, but at least his home close to home.
I think civilization will fully step into the Galactic Federation when the leaders also start remembering their past lives, when the leaders step into their truth of who they are. But I think for now, we're still in this, what I call multidimensional amnesia. You helping others to remember. And that's our role. We're here
I'm trying to do my best. I still get called.
You're doing amazing.
Yeah, I still get called delusional and a weirdo, and by, I guess, just random people online. But you know what? This truth that I'm sharing, I think resonates with a lot of us. And to me, if it was that delusional, I don't think it would resonate so much with so many different people. So I think it's activating a lot of our collective memories of who we are, where we came from, what our past lives were here on Earth and in other star systems.
I'm super grateful for your work because your work helped me to remember. It was like a seed that opened up a whole flower of my own memories. So I think that's what we can do is spread these seeds everywhere, these sparkles, and then it's up to people to really tap into their own inner knowing and be curious. So whether any of this makes sense or not, maybe in this moment it doesn't, but I know my audience is open for the
Oh,
deeper
no, I
rabbit
mean,
holes of it, and I know everyone is seeking this information.
I believe we need to make it more mainstream, and it needs to be a topic in schools that we learn about galactic history, not just Earth history. So that's my goal.
It's so beautiful and gives us a perspective of our
I know.
earthly little life, and knowing that there's so
Well,
much
I
more
think it
not.
just makes more sense when you look at it. It's okay, yeah, that makes more sense than, oh yeah, God created a man and a woman, and they were in this little garden, and then they talked to a snake, and then they ate an apple, and then everything went to shit after that.
Which is a metaphor, right, for the
Yeah,
whole Lyran
it is a
civilization.
metaphor for the Lyran experience. I do believe
It's
that.
interesting that it was hidden in a text in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Part of it is true. We had these paradises. We did have a beautiful divine template, and now we're just coming back to it,
Yeah, we are recreating it as we speak.
creating Lyra all
Yeah,
over.
all over again.
Yeah,
So Lyra's coming back, and
Lemuria's
Lemuria's
coming
coming
back.
back, and Andromeda's coming back. Yeah, we're making the full circle. We live in exciting times, very exciting times. It's exciting to see what's around the corner.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And if
Thank
someone
you for
wants
having
to
me.
take a workshop with you or learn more, what's the best way to find your information?
So the best way would be just to go on my website, which is debbiesolaris.com, just like it's spelled. And people can also find me on the social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. And I'm not on TikTok, sorry. I don't do the TikTok, but I'm on YouTube. So, if you want to see what an Akashic reading is, go check out my YouTube videos. And I do quite a few different. So I feature not just celebrities, but also I've done quite a few in regular people readings too. So there's that. You can learn a lot of information. And then my website has this beautiful section on galactic history that it features mainly the bigger star systems that I think a lot of us are familiar with, but there is a lot of information on those pages. So that's available at no cost. And then if you're interested in some of the trainings, I do offer a Galactic Akashic reading course that we're going to offer that again this year in September. If you're interested in that, just sign up for it. And then we got a littler trainings on different starseed aspects such as health and relationships and elemental beings and all kinds of stuff that on my training page that anybody can access. So there's that also. And then if you want to see me in person, let's see, the next event I'll be at will be at MetaParacon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm going to be the keynote speaker at that event. So that'll be April 17th through the 19th. So there's several online things I'll be part of. And then I'll be in Mexico in December for All Shift Happily Now conference. So there's that as well. And I'm sure there's more to come. There's the Starseed conference.
Yeah, I think it just got shifted from July to November from what I heard. But you and I definitely going to be at Starseed conference together.
Oh, yeah.
Plan
No,
to be there.
Starseed conference is a good conference. If you want a conference that is full of love and support and great speakers and just lovely people in a beautiful location. I think this year is going to be in Vancouver,
Yeah,
British
it's in
Columbia.
Vancouver. Yeah.
That'll be one to pay attention to. And yeah, I can't wait to be a part of that one. So yeah, it's going to be great. Thank you again for having me on.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for bringing all this awareness to humanity. Despite all these comments, I know there's many of us who admire you. Anywhere I go and your name comes up, everyone only has beautiful things to say. So please know your work is super valuable and has helped me and many to step into their galactic selves and own it.
Yeah.
Like I'm owning my title of galactic shaman, and thanks to you.
I'm owning my title of Galactic Historian.
Yeah, it's a beautiful title.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
so
anyway,
much.
so thank you again, and everybody have a beautiful next few years. I think we're going to have a lot of fun together.
Yeah. Buckle up for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. We welcome you to join upcoming Sedona retreat April 11th through April 15th. in the magic lands of Arizona. Bell Rock is one of the most potent vortexes. It is interdimensional portal. We're going to connect to the frequencies, the sound healing, and have incredible experience of dancing, Kundalini activation, breath work, meditations, and much more. Sound healing is essential to expanding our consciousness, but also activating those special codes. If this is resonating with you and you want to be part of our intimate and really powerful group that we're going to be co-creating with you, find out more information at quantumcodesretreat.com. Reach out to me for more questions. I'm Diana Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self.